Okay, folks, should we start? Is it the right time to start? Give me a thumbs up if we have to. Are we waiting for a couple of more minutes?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, so I can.
Okay. I'll give a quick intro and then we'll get started. So we're doing something different today. I think this is a first for targeting quality, is having the presenter be virtual. We fully intended this to be an in-person talk, but due to some travel issues that Valentin had, he couldn't be here in person, but we were really excited on this topic, so we wanted to still bring it to you. And so that's why we're doing it this way. That's not what we typically do, but we made an exception this one time. So bear with us through technical challenges, but I think we have it mostly figured out. With that, I'll let you take it over, okay?
Hello,
Valentin?
everyone. Yes, let me roll. Hello, everyone. My name is Valentin. I'm currently based in Berlin. So due to, 2023, right? We can connect even remotely in different continents and still have a nice conversation. Unfortunately, I don't see all your faces, but hopefully by the end of this talk, we will have a couple of more questions. If you have some, I will reserve some time for you too. And today we will talk about killing regression testing. Before we start, let me introduce yourself a little bit more in details. I have been working as a quality assurance engineer on different roles in different companies for the last 12 years already. Mainly, it was a startup world, but recently I have switched my career to a corporate job due to layoffs. You know, startups usually also trying to cut their costs. And now I'm working as a quality assurance expert in SAP Signavio. And I have started my new chapter in career in August. But today we're going to talk about killing regression testing, and I have to make a disclaimer that first of all, it's not connected with SAP anyhow, and it's based on my previous experience. And maybe later on we will see how it would be adjusted for corporate companies too. Today we are going mainly to talk about fast-paced agile startup environment where we'll prioritize delivery speed over following any guidelines if you have. And I think it's very important to highlight because startups, if you have been working with startups, could switch or shift their attention and their product roadmap pretty quickly. I've been in situations when startups switched even MVPs and shipped MVPs every other week. And this is a common thing when you try to find a market fit. That's why regression testing doesn't fit well, right? Like if you see this way that regression testing could take so much time, I'm not sure that startups could even move faster and beat any other companies and find this market fit, market share. So let's start. Why do we talk about quality assurance processes, right? I think that's today, if you would like to be a quality assurance engineer or you step into this career, you go to a regular training. You understand software development lifecycle, you understand tools, you understand programming languages. If you're not a manual QA, you understand process in general. But I don't think that we give much thought due to recent changes. Let's start even with AI, right? AI is here. We are all very excited about these new tools. But what AI is doing for us, at least for me in my experience, writing test case for regression testing. I found it so ridiculous that these big thing, very shiny things help us to do something that could even be reduced or deprecated. Additionally, I had another option for you if you asking still why we're talking about that. Before internet era, we deliver our software differently. We burn CDs. Recently, we burn floppy disks, or we even deliver some big pieces of any other options to your home. And you actually buy this stuff not online, but buy this stuff in regular store, right? Offline. Of course, on such environment, you could not even possibly see an update frequently, or you cannot afford any mistakes because as soon as you burn 10,000 CDs, how much cost it would be to reburn again and ship it again to your lovely customers? It's almost impossible, right? And so much costs gives me an idea that maybe we have to rethink about that. Maybe we have to go even further and think how quality process itself has to be structured. Let's start with the basic first. Let's cover the basics. What is regression testing? Why do we run regression testing? And what's good and bad about it? Hopefully, this audience is familiar with regression testing and we could follow quickly through these slides. But still, if you're not familiar, I would like to cover that so we are on the same page, we understand this topic the same way. Regression testing, right? Regression testing, if you open any Wikipedia, for example, you will find a definition that is running functional and non-functional tests to ensure that previously developed and tested software still performed as expected after a change. But basically, if you're going to any company, you just run all tests you have. You have test cases on the test trail. You just create a new test run, pull all test cases, and rerun all of them because I expect that you are covering a lot of things with your regression testing. Additionally, we also highlight here non-functional tests. And I think it's very important that we also not only running any manual tests or automation tests to cover end-to-end testing for functional testing, but also see how our system reflects on non-functional way. As an example, we could install something on our remote machine, the same as production, and run this test to see what the performance is. But also this idea to install the separate machine just to copy production already seems off because of the costs. And costs here, you will hear a lot on my topics. So I'm talking a lot about costs, how much it costs, and can we even afford it to run regression testing in a regular environment? Next one. Why do we run regression testing? It could be obviously, right, that we run it to ensure quality software. I personally think we run it because we're afraid. We fear to make mistakes. We fear to push defects to production, to find new bugs and disappoint our customers. And this fear pushes us even harder to run one regression testing. I even saw companies that run a couple of regression testings in a row because they challenge themselves. Maybe we could find another defect with another regression test. They were so afraid to let it go because it was purely manual testing, of course. But still, I think that fear drives us to stick to the process, stick to the rules, stick to any guidelines we heard before or learned before in our previous experience, in our trainings, etc. And this is one of the things I think that we always keep in mind. That's if we do not challenge more often what we are doing in our regular routine. What's good and what's bad, right? Always also on my experience, I would like to refer something, challenge myself, right? To see what's wrong with that. What's good about regression is definitely confidence, right? If you have someone who is responsible for regression testing, you could ask questions if you have defects in production. What happened if we have someone who is responsible for that? And additionally to that, I think that with regression testing, we always have up-to-date documentation because you cannot run regression testing without up-to-date documentation. You usually even take a couple of weeks to prepare documentation to run regression testing and next additional week to just execute it. And it also could be mixed, right? It's not purely manual. It could be mixed between automation and manual, and it's going together basically. But it's very time consuming. Even with automation testing, you see that to write all these tests takes so much time that maybe we shouldn't do that. It's so time consuming, not only for manual testers, but also for automation one. And as soon as we spend time, we spend money. It's already obvious for me that every single minute of your work, every single hour or sprint costs us money. And if you haven't heard, even now, many startups break down feature delivery for a price. How much will you spend to deliver one feature? And they have fixed costs. For example, development, an average could cost us 20,000. Testing, maybe 5 more. And delivery and fixing bugs, 30 more. So they try to prioritize feature delivery based not only ROI, but also how much they will spend right now to make sure that's live. Even if you have, for example, a couple of teams on a base salary, even in this case scenario that you will spend money on the salary next week, or next month the same amount as the previous month, even in that case, you always keep in mind how much it costs. And this shift on a business mind, that's many companies, not all of them, of course, but many companies trying to think how to efficiently spend money on the development, gives an idea that we cannot afford release delays. Every single release keeps new functionality. Every single increment gives us opportunity to earn a little bit more money on a short period of time. And of course, I don't force you or anyone to just push to production and forget just to earn some money. Of course, it's not the case. Here, on my first slide, if you haven't noticed, I'm talking about killing regression testing in order to deliver fast, but not compromise any customer experience. I think that we delay release for week 2, 3, just to make sure that we have all tests in place, we have reporting, we have people behind who is responsible for that. But still, we are postponed this moment when we could earn a little bit more. And today it's crucial, right? Again, came back to the costs. It's crucial to get ROI as soon as possible, to get market feedback as soon as possible, to see how it fits. And with so many tools, companies that building software as a service right now, it's very competitive. And to start building something that and postpone releases in the weeks, we cannot afford that. So I think that you also can come up with more options, what good and bad about regression testing, and keep in mind when you make your own decision based on my speech. Are you or your company even consider to go to deprecate regression testing or not? Or maybe try to see how your quality assurance processes looks like from a different angle. But let's move on. Let's move on to the next slide. So let's now think about how we can discontinue regression testing. I think that personally that we shouldn't go blind, and we should make sure that we are preparing all our engineering department with all tools and processes in place. We cannot, of course, some companies can go, let's kill regression testing today because we cannot find any defects for the last 2 regressions. We run regression testing for mobile apps or desktop apps, website, and we haven't found any crucial defects. So why we even spend time and money again on the regression testing? But me personally, I think that we have to be ready for that and be mature enough as an engineering department to make sure that we actually can deprecate it and be mindful about that. Here, I would like to highlight 3 pillars I personally believe we could utilize to make sure that regression testing is not necessary anymore. It is shadowing traffic, feature flags, and beta testing. You could utilize one of them for your own benefits. You could combine all of that together and deliver it as the whole quality assurance package. But still, you see that a lot of combinations of that could be benefits for your company. In my previous experience, we are trying all of them in once. And additionally, we also had incident management in place and observability, but I will talk about that a little bit later. So let's dive into shadowing traffic. I always ask people when I had interviews about shadowing traffic, do you know what is it? What is shadowing traffic or mirroring traffic? And people usually don't know. I was surprised that it's not the common idea right now in our environment that shadowing traffic is not very popular. Basically, that means that we are mirroring all traffic from production environment to a new version of our service. Of course, I'm talking mainly about microservice architecture. Of course, we cannot just spin up the second monolith close by our current environment, but if we are playing with microservices, it's way more easier and cheap spin up the second environment and just shadowing traffic to that. Why do we even do that? So 1 second. First of all, it's very interesting to see changes during pre-deployment, because shadowing traffic is not even deployment your main cluster or main nodes or main server. We spin up environment in parallel and see how it behaves on real data. Additionally, we validate the scale. We validate how our new environment could handle all requests. Here, I would like to also make the point that all parallel environment we spin up is not reporting back to customers. So only production is working as usual, but we just mirror traffic and the new environment is not reporting back to the customer. So no degradation on the customer experience. We only see on our data and observability tools how it behaves. And it also validates the scale. In case, for example, your developer is pushing some code that affects performance, you will easily see when you shadow traffic that's your new service response not as fast as your production environment, and you could dig deeper, understand where the bottlenecks, how to fix it, and also not pushing code to production before you fix that. Additionally, I would say that it's impossible, almost impossible to do it with regression testing, because spin up the whole environment and run all tests on the same scale would be absolutely expensive. I learned it from my previous company when we tried to run performance tests on production-like database. And when your database weighs a couple of terabytes, you have to obfuscate data, you have to run your service. It costs 10,000 euros per month, and it's not even feasible for us to spend so much money to just spin up an environment. It's way more easier just to add a new cluster, a new node, and scale your current production to handle the load if you have some. And it will be in a short period of time. I don't believe that we do or build new Instagram or new Facebook that's go viral or Snapchat every single day. And usually, in my case, in my scenario, specifically when we're talking about B2B customers, we can estimate how much traffic we will get. As soon as we sell a new contract, we know how much we have to handle. We could add additional CPU, additional memory in advance. It's not a big deal. Additionally, of course, the cost came back when you run this service for many weeks and months. Financial department will come to you and ask, why do we use so much money? And you definitely have to build a case that it's necessary. But in general, I would say that shadow traffic is way more cheaper rather than spin up an environment and test everything on production. I don't believe that Google has a second Google to just monitor their systems. It's impossible. Or if they have, it would be a nightmare for them. The last piece, what I'm talking about shadowing traffic, what I like about it, we actually use realistic data to test it. I don't know about you, but in my scenario, in my case, when we run regression testing, we often use some dummy strings, dummy lengths, dummy texts, or any other data. It's very difficult for us manually, specifically, I'm talking about manual testing and write test cases manually, generate so much real data over the time it's impossible to just replicate it every single time. And if we're talking about running regression testing, not today, but in 2 weeks, in 2 months, in a half of the year, data in our tests will be out of date because we could start working on a new country or new landscape or do a new product, and we're not, I don't know, accepting credit cards anymore, we're accepting PayPal, for example, for payment. And you again have to update everything. It's so much time consuming. I don't see that we could even manipulate or do something similar rather than realistic data. And yeah, it's increasing our reliability of our tests. Basically, as soon as you have real data, it's better to know your problems on real data. Of course, as soon as you shadow traffic, you also have your login system. I assume your backend developers or frontend developers has their own login system. They could highlight or see any defects or any errors they got on the real traffic almost live and fix that before we push it to production. And additional observability in general as an idea about performance and about your reliability of the system is very important here. We cannot just push the parallel service and shadow traffic on it and go blind and don't see what's happening because it's not beneficial. Yes, that's why I'm talking about that collaboration with DevOps team, or if you have some, it's very crucial here. So we could understand each other and speak on the same language. Okay, enough about good stuff. Let's talk about bad stuff, why you should not run shadowing traffic. And again, this is trade-off, right? Again, you have to see when you have to apply these tools, when you have to apply this approach in general, and when you can skip it for now. First of all, you may impact business operations. Specifically, I'm talking about databases. If you will consider to run your shadowing traffic on the same database, it could be very crucial for your business operation because the database will get the second twice more loads if you spin 2 environments. If you spin 3 environments will be 3 times more, right? That's why you have to be very cautious about what kind of database behind shadowing traffic and make sure that it's not impacting real data. The second one, it's about persistence of chains. I think that if you are pushing a lot of shadowing traffic services in parallel, you should keep in mind what changes you are pushing here. Because specifically, I'm talking about naming. I would say that if you're pushing new service in parallel, please name what kind of feature you are pushing there. And you will know what reflects on your test results. The third part, we can actually we cannot actually run any real transactions. I'm talking about payments first. So you could imagine that we cannot charge people twice, our customers twice, because they just generate 2 more API requests to our service. So that's why you have to be cautious about how your transactions works and encapsulate as much as possible. Again, it's tied very to the pragmatic engineering approach when you have to have clear architecture, when you have to have guidelines, how to write code, how to encapsulate it, and what's behind it. That's why just to push new environment in parallel will not work for you. You could mess up. That's true. And the last piece is very important. I think in general, it's regulations. For example, GDPR, it's regulation in Europe. Yeah, I'm talking from Berlin, by the way. Make it illegal to test with real user data. You have to obfuscate. You have to obfuscate on fly and see and make sure that you are not storing your real user data on the separate database, and you don't use it and you don't expose it. That's why this is very complex now. Like in general, idea seems very nice. Just spin up new environment and go fly. But it's not. You have to be cautious on every single piece and every single aspect. That's why tools has to be in place. Here, I would like to highlight you 4 options you could go for if you would like to play a little bit with shadowing traffic or even introduce it to your company. First one is ISTO. It is an option if you are working with Google Clouds. It's native to Google Cloud, and you will find beautiful documentations on GCP website. The second one is traffic mirroring on Amazon. If you are running your services on AWS, they provide you such feature. By the way, I haven't mentioned about ISTO. It's not only about shadowing traffic. It's in general about networking management, and all roles, responsibilities, authorization also could be handled by the service. 2 last pieces, Ambassador and SpeedScale. It is a software as a service, and you could use it. It doesn't matter where you play. And they also have not only shadowing traffic as a feature, but also huge complex of different other options with networking systems, etc. I think that every single time you introduce something to the company, you have to have a list of the options you can play with, requirements, and how much it costs, what could be benefits about it. But hopefully you will have this slide and they could explore yourself what suits you best. Let's move on to the next part. Let's talk about feature flags a little bit. I think that's feature flag in general, the idea, if you're not familiar, that you could encapsulate the part of your applications and switch it on or off if you don't use it or if you don't want to release it. And when we're talking about killing regression testing, I'm also touching feature flags because I expect our engineering department release everything on the feature flag before we push it to production. So first stage is shadowing traffic. Is everything fine? If everything is fine, we don't have any 500s, we don't have any mistakes, and we're ready to go live with all our testing, we could release it under feature flag and see how our system behaves under feature flag. Feature flag is off. Customers using our customers' experience hasn't changed, and we could use our service as usual. Additionally to that, feature flags also provide us trunk-based development options. It means that you could push everything to the main branch, but under the feature flag. And it could help you in case you have one big monolith and multiple teams working with one directory, and it's going to be a nightmare with branches. What branches to merge first? How to rebrace your branch to make sure that your new increment doesn't break anything else. It's way more easy, just feature flag it. Feature flag it, push it to production. Let's see what happens next. As I mentioned, it's very interesting to play with switched on, switched off on application. And of course, you shouldn't roll back the entire application if your feature is not working. Usually it works. For example, with Argo CD, it's easy to roll back with one click, but not every single company is so advanced to make sure that you could do it on the ops level, on the infrastructure level, but at least on an application level, you could switch off any part of it and still use our application as usual. And the last piece, I really like to separate deploy and release stages. Usually, I don't know, like maybe 5 years ago, it was very common that as soon as you push something to production, you release it. But in my case, I would love to first deploy, see how it's behave, and if the guidelines meets, we just switch flags off and switch a flag on and release our feature as usual. When you shouldn't work with feature flags, again, I would like to give you another perspective, so you will be ready when if you will be talking to your management, to your engineering department, to your tech leads, or even if you're tech leads, you also could pay attention to that. Feature flags is a nightmare. I will be honest with you. Management and integration is a nightmare, specifically if you have more than one team. If you have, I had an experience with 10 teams, and it became so complex. So our department for marketing is using one tool for feature flags because they would like to separate audiences and a piece of audience, one option for software, and the second audience, another software. But our technical department would like to be sure that we could encapsulate on another level of integration our software and switch it on for everyone. And you could not switch it off based on audience. And as soon as you grow and you're working with feature flags, you will have hundreds and thousands of feature flags. That's why you need someone who could own this piece of infrastructure, this piece of architecture, someone who could pay attention how you name your feature flags, how you make sure that your owner of the feature flag will not mess up with any other feature flags. And you could test feature flags properly. It's very complex, and you cannot start even doing that without proper explanation when to work with feature flags, on what level encapsulation it has to work, etc. Let's talk about that a little bit more when I would like to also offer you 3 options you can work for. From my experience, I have been working with Optimizely, with Launch Darkly, and Open Feature. Additionally, of course, you can build your own feature flag solution, but it depends on your requirements. And when I'm talking about requirements, you have to understand that feature flags could work on multiple different levels. The most easiest way, I would say, it's blocking feature on the front-end side. It doesn't matter when I'm talking about front-end, not only about like how it looks like on the website or on your mobile application, but also I'm talking about APIs, right? About your controllers. You could do encapsulation on feature flags on a just representation, API, your code itself on a business logic level, and additionally, you could do it even on infrastructure level. And you could find the way works for you best. Specifically with shadow traffic or load balancers, you could do infrastructure level. You could find a way to just push one piece of audience to one server, one cluster, another piece of audience to another one. But also, you could find a way. You could build your requirements first. If you're very new to that, I offer you start with frontend. It's way more easier just to encapsulate a piece of a React website, for example, or Next.js website, and just one component will work or not under feature flag. And of course, you can do it on the route level, and it will not block any customer's experience at all. Later on, if you are mature enough and your backend developers or are happy to also utilize feature flags for their own purposes, you could also introduce feature flags to a backend. Specifically, I'm talking about Launch Darkly, for example. They offer you many options, and you could even mix front-end and backend together. You could play, but of course, be curious and be sure that you are not open feature on front-end and block it on the backend, right? Again, I'm talking about ownership, who will own it, and how does it work together. So these 3 options could cover many cases, and additionally, you could also play with other features these services provide, or build your own if you have time and money, obviously. Let's move on to the last piece of my 3 options, what I'm suggesting to deliver as a package to make sure that we could discount regression testing. I'm talking about beta testing. If you don't know, beta testing is a stage of software lifecycle when you open your software to a group of audience who is loyal to you and happy to use your software, even if it's not ready, go live for general audience. It works very smoothly with mobile applications specifically, but also you could utilize it if you are doing B2B software as a service on a website or desktop applications. You could introduce, in my case, it was a scenario when we introduced a new domain, beta.blah.blah.com, and you could offer your customers who is hungry to get new features using this software, and in case keep also production live, so they could switch back in case your beta testing environment is not working. For beta testing, you have multiple options. Specifically for iOS and Android applications, this is native. You could easily switch it on your stores, on Play Market and App Store. If you are talking about websites and desktop applications, it's a bit more complex, but you could find a way, for example, using your domain name or introducing your credentials for your current customers, so you could separate two options. Additionally, again, with beta testing, observability is a key. In my scenario previously, we compare beta testing performance and production performance on one slide, so you could see how it behaves. Additionally, when we're talking about mobile applications, I also would like to track how much money people spend on beta apps comparing to production apps. And in my scenario, it was an option when you could pay with a card inside your app, because we deliver groceries, and I would like to collect all different payment methods under beta testing before we push it to production. It was for me crucial to get at least payments for every single country we operate, for every single options we offer our customers to pay with, other than just push it to production, forget about it. So please consider this also as an option to deliver as a package to make sure that we could deprecate regression testing, and pick a tool according to your platform you use. Keep in mind also collaboration with tech leads, engineering department, DevOps, because they also will have ideas. I bet they, as soon as you mention about beta testing, they already have an option we can go for. It sounds really fun, right? Just to deliver three these pillars and we're good to go. But unfortunately not, because even in this scenario, a lot of things could go wrong. First of all, it seems very complex, right? Technically, when I describe three different options, and then this is only tip of the iceberg. You can go even deeper and introduce more different tools and scenarios we could utilize to make sure that we don't need regression testing and spend time and money. It's very complex in technical implementation. Again, we have someone who own it and drive adoption in the company. And of course, if you are a small startup, 10, 15 people, it's easy. But if we're going about a huge corporate or bigger audience, it's very difficult to just move one team to this idea and doesn't move another one without any problems, dependencies, etc. The second part, that's it could go wrong if you don't have enough data. Enough data or knowledge about your system, how does it behave? And it came from your observability system. If you don't have millions of users or thousands of users, it could be problematic because it will not give you representative data. If you shadow traffic for a new server and you get only 2-3 requests a day, it's useless because you will wait so much time to collect enough data to make a judgment about your system. That's it. Maybe it's worse to just do your regression testing manually. The third part is quality degradation. I think it's connected with angry customers, of course, because you could expose beta testing with defects, even if you shadow traffic, deliver under feature flags, but still some of the customers would not be very happy. In this case, I could tell you that it's not a big deal because not every single customer will be happy with you anyway, but let's see what I would like to give you why you have to consider even to make this change, why you have to make sure that we could go this way. I have 3 pillars here. First one is cheap. Even if you lose one customer, if it's small one, of course, and we're talking about B2C customers first. B2B, we cannot afford, of course, no way. If you are losing 10 or even 100 customers, and lifetime value of these 100 customers will be a couple of thousands euros or dollars a year, it's definitely ship our features fast will not hurt us because as soon as we ship new functionality, as I mentioned before, we earn more money. And we can get this money back rather than spend it on our salaries. Usually rates in Germany, I would say 50 euro per hour for quality assurance engineer. And if engineer works 8 hours a day, it's already 400 euro a day. Just to prepare, for example, test case scenarios and run it, it will cost you a couple of thousands. So where you would like to trade it? You would like to spend so much money and time on developing regression testing, or you could trade it on your customer base, if you can, of course, if you can afford it, and have these fast, cheap features delivered earlier. And in case, for example, you have millions revenue in a year, even 1% change will make a difference. You will get all your money back easily. The second one, I think that it's effective because it's based on data. We make a judgment about quality of our software, not because someone ran regression testing based on one test case scenario and don't even consider to do multiple regression testing in general, but based on data, we could have a proof. And we could say that we make a decision because we tested on real environment, shadow traffic, we released it under feature flag, it didn't break anything, and beta testers are happy with that. This is real data from real work, not just someone who ran testing on a regression environment. And the last piece, what I haven't mentioned yet, it's a confidence. As soon as you introduce such thing or even start talking about it with your developers, they will be first, of course, angry because they don't want to change, and it's totally normal for our human being. But as soon as they adopt the idea that any change in a way will be introduced to production, they will give it a second thought. Are we ready to push it to production today? Does my code works as expected or not? I think it's build confidence in the team, then build a new habit and responsibility, of course, that they will not push it to QA's department and QA's will do all testing, all regression testing and make it work. But we are here as engineers commit more. We're committing that our software we build actually usable, and using all these tools I shared with you previously, we could deliver that. Again, I would like to have a separate slide about observability. Invest time and money to observability. You will use it on a daily basis. And even if you don't build beautiful charts about your quality status, your quality score, even on an idea of latency, how quick your software is on different level, on a database level, on a functional level, on business logic level, on front-end level, gives you so much information, not only about, of course, killing regression testing, but in general about health of your system. In my case, of course, I would like to use top-notch technologies, and I had so much fun using Grafana and Datadog, but it depends, of course, on your budget of your company. But I bet today's in 2023, almost every single company has their own budget for observability tools and login tools. I think we could wrap up here, and we will reserve some time for a couple of more questions if you have. And I'm also very happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. Please find me, and I would be very happy to continue this conversation. Ask me any questions offline if you have some. But now we have, I think, 5 minutes at least for a couple of more questions if you have. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you and share with you my experience. Yeah, we can unmute, right? The audience, if you have questions, right? Do we have any hands?
Yeah, anyone wants to walk over to the laptop?
It looks unmuted to me.
Yeah. Anyone have any questions for him? Yeah. Okay.
Right, let's get this experiment going. See,
Let's see how far we can push this technology.
Hello, thank you.
Hello.
So I'm thinking you make a great case for killing regression and using some of these other tools instead, but it seems like it could also be a case for kind of using all 4 of them in balance. So like it's everything you've talked about has costs and benefits that maybe could change. So I don't know, just interesting your thoughts on that.
I think that you are also touching a very good point, specifically when we just introducing some new technology. It could be a period of time when you use everything, right? You use regression testing because it's safe and confidence, and you're introducing new tools, and you could see how it plays out. I don't know how much you could also manipulate with the cost of your and budget of your team and how much it could cost for you, but if you are able to give it extra thought, not one sprint, one quarter, to see how it plays out, and do you actually find defects on regression testing or not, it's worth to utilize everything, of course. And we could not be even safer if we do all at once. But for me specifically, I'm talking about startup scene. Cost is everything. Right now, when I'm going to on an interview, they will ask me how much it costs to test something, and I have no doubts to say that, of course, we could do regression testing. It will cost you 2 weeks of work, couple of thousands, but we also could do real time testing, and it will cost you different amount of money, but add you a speed. So that's why trade-off between regression testing and the rest could be different. And please play around, find a balance, what works for you, because every single company, every single product is unique. I think that's what something works for me will not work for you in a pure way, of course. But there is options, trades off, as you mentioned. That's why please give it a thought, and maybe you will find the perfect balance for you. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? Yeah, if you're too shy, please send me a message on LinkedIn. I will be very happy to continue conversation.
Thanks for piloting.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I'm very sorry I'm not here with you in person, but at least we can do it live.
Yeah, hopefully we can have you here next year. So if you have feedback about the content, that's great. Also, if you have feedback about this format and setup, again, it's something we did as a one-off, and but maybe we'll do more, maybe we'll do less next year. If you provide feedback, there's a QR code there to leave feedback. We'd really appreciate that, or talk to anyone in a green shirt. Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Yeah, she did. And it's funny, same problems for the monthly roadmap.
I just realized I'm on the camera there.
Yeah, we were both like, yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I think I was at some point like nodding off the tiny thing, and I feel terrible that maybe I was giving him bad feedback there.
Yeah, my first Slack kept going, guys, I'm about to go up and just like, I did mute, because I'm like, okay, I know where that is, it's a digital laptop, but
Yeah,
slow down.
she just had to go to the.
Yeah, when it kept going up, I'm like, okay, if it does it once more, I'm gonna go just.
Kept going like notifications, like.
There's a meeting invite.
No. I mean, I see there, but they.
No, but you hear the
We
thing.
could hear it here. Yeah, that's all. Yeah. I just meant if she kept getting like 100 Slacks, I was gonna mute it, but a few is fine. Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
A lot. Yeah. Going to work and
The other one, yeah. I think both were very interesting. This one was interesting because actually I understand. For me, this was more like the infrastructure.